Hello everyone. Today's week is going to talk about human development, and so far we are group 5, and my student number is 621000694. So happy Tawat China. So begin with attachment through the life course. This about this phrase is explain about the significance of the close emotional bond that develop with their caregivers and the implication of these bond for understanding personality development. So moreover, close relationship plays such a big role in our human experiences and so on. Attachment theory is one approach to understand the nature of close relationship. Um, about attachment theory, back to 1969, Bowlby observed that infants would go extraordinary lengths to prevent separation from their parents. For example, he noted that children who had been separated from their parents would often cry, cough, or their parents refuse to eat or play. And Bobby argued that these behaviors are adaptive responses to separation from primary attachment figure, which refer to a caregiver who provides support. In this context, it refers to the parents. According to Bowlby, a motivational system or behavioral system was gradually designed by natural selection to regulate proximity to an attachment figure. Individual differences in infant attachment. Um, Mary Ainsworth began to study infant and parent separation that a formal understanding of these individual differences. So she and her student developed a technique called strange situation, a laboratory text for studying infant and parent attachment. So uh, she, her work was important for three reasons, which is first, she provided one of the first empirical demonstration of how attachment behavior is organized in unfamiliar context. And next, she provided the first empirical taxonomy of individual differences in infant attachment patterns. And uh, according to her research, three types of children exist: to those who are secure in their relationship with their parent, and those who are anxious, resistant, and those who are unavoidant. So finally, she demonstrated that these individual differences were correlated with infant-parent interaction in the home during the first year of life. Um, antecedents of attachment patterns. One of the key determinants of attachment pattern is the history of sensitive and responsive interaction between the caregiver and the child. So when the child is uncertain or stressed, the ability of the caregiver is to provide support to the child, and it is critical for his or her psychological development. Uh, and their support, their protection can give the child the confidence to explore the environment and provide the child with a safe uh, during stressful circumstances. So Van den Booms uh, developed an intervention that was designed to enhance maternal sensitive responsiveness when the infants were 9 months of age. The mothers in the intervention group were rated as more responsive and attentive in their interaction with their infants compared to mother in the control group. So attachment patterns and child outcome. This slide talks about the association between child attached patterns and the adaptive over time. Uh, For example, children who are classified as secure in a strange situation are more likely to have high functioning relationship with peers. So in contrast, insecure children are more likely to be construed as bullies or to have difficult time building and maintaining friendship.
Okay, so in my slide, first is about the attachment in adulthood. Adults are described as having four attachment style. First is secure. Second, anxious, preoccupied. And the third is dismissive, avoidant. And the fourth is the fearful avoidant. It's focusing on the understanding of nature of the infant caregiver relationship. The next, research on attachment in adulthood. So it's from this thing we got like we know how to behave in how to be good by using our personality, how to be, like behave in social. We learn it from our life in like adult. When we are in adult, we learn a lot of things. So like we know that how do we behave things. The next is the relationship functioning. So in this one, it's like when we are older and working, we know like when someone do something bad to you in the working space, so it's like you know how to control yourself. Like you know that like if you do this, two of you will be working. Like if you are working with your partner, right, and like if you do this thing, your partner will feel bad with it. So you will know to control yourself. That like, oh, okay, it's okay, never mind, like that. Like knowing how to like avoid of having fights or something bad together to like keep the relationship from two of you with your partner, like that. The next slide. Do early experience shape adult attachment? Uh, the adult are actually like, what do we call it? Remember and adapting the old memory when you are in like in the childhood to like adapt to use it in your like adult when you are in adult. Like when you are like a student, you like playing with the plug and you get like shocked because the electric, what do you call it, electrify, right, electric shock, and it's like make yourself feeling like paralyzed like that. And so when you are in adult, you know that like, okay, if you touch the plug, the electricity could like shock to you, so now you not use it again. Okay, thank you.
Cognitive development in childhood. I will tell about introduction about cognitive development in childhood. Cognitive development refers to the development of thinking across the lifespan. Defining thinking can be problematic because no clear boundaries separate thinking from other mental activity. Thinking obviously involves the higher mental process. Cognitive development is about change. Children thinking change the dramatic and surprising way. Cognitive development in childhood is about change. From birth to adolescence, a young person might change dramatically in many important ways. Nature and nurture. The most basic question about child development is how nature and nurture together shape development. Nature refers to our biological environment, the gene we receive from our parents. Nurture refers to the environment, social as well as physical, that influence our development. Everything from the womb in which we develop before birth to the home in which we grow up, the school we attend, and the many people with whom we interact. The way in which nature and nurture work together can be seen in finding on visual development. Many people view vision as something that people either are born with or that is purely a measure of biological maturation, but it also depends on the right kind of experience at the right time. And this slide about does cognitive development process through distinct stages. I will show about when child was born through lifetime. The first stage that Piaget hypothesized were 1. The sensory motor state, birth to 2 years. Intelligent child interact with environment by manipulating objects. And 2. The pre-operational listening state, 2 to 6 years or 7 years. Thinking dominated by perception, but child become more capable of symbolic functioning, conservation problem. And 3. The concrete operational listening stage, 6 or 7 years to 11 to 12 years. Logical reasoning only applies the objects that are real or can be seen. And the last one, the formal operational listening stage, 11 or 12 years, and throughout the rest of life, individual can think logically about potential events or abstract ideas.
Hi, so this part about application to educations. We discovered that reading is important activity in the development of education for children, and the researcher they found reading in terms of phonemic awareness, that is, awareness of the consonant sounds within words. It's a crucial skill in learning through reading for childhood. And for another activity that help the student to improve education such as board game. Board game help children to improve and learn mathematics so that they play shoot and ladder. Shoot and ladder is a game with a number of each square. Children start at the number 1 and spin a spinner or throw a dice to determine how far to move their token. And this slide I will conclusions of about this chapter. The researcher had shown us mind don't just form according to inborn, but that's combinations of influence factor. For example, if we want our kids to be good at math and science or whatever, we could engage them in activity early on. So that's this quotation, brain as empty vessel waiting to be filled up with knowledge, but as adaptable organ that's developed all the way to early adulthood. Hi, Professor. Today I would like to talk about adolescence development. Okay, let's see. Adolescence define. Adolescence is a developmental state that has been defined as starting with puberty and ending with the transition to adulthood, maybe age around 10 to 20 years old, and changing that occurred during adolescence in three domains. The first one is physical change, second one is cognitive change, and the last one is social change. Okay, let's see about physical change. The both of men and women, they change in physical and like body, and they go like both in height and they go in the pubic and underarm hair, skin change in like pimples, more also go in facial hair and deepening of their voice, and go uh, also go in being menstruation. About cognitive change, like just like thinking, cognitive change during adolescence include a shift from concrete to more abstract and complex thinking. The brain dopaminergic system contribute to increase in adolescent sensation seeking and reward motivation. And then later in adolescence, the brain cognitive control center in the uh, prefrontal cortex develop, increase adolescent self-regulations and future orientations. The adolescents are motivated to seek skills that sometimes come from leaks behavior, such as reckless driving, smoking, and drinking. And about social change, this part have three sections about parents, peers, and romantic relationships. About parents, uh, par- about parents, adolescents, they usually being spending more time with their peer and less time with their family. Adolescents within the peer groups tend to be similar to one another in behavioral and attitude, which has been explained as being and functions that call homophily. And about peer. Family relationships that's still important as adolescents harmony. During this time, different aspects of parenting become more salient. Adolescents' peer influence is known as deviant peer contagion. This is the process by which peers reinforce problem behavior.
And the last one for social change is romantic relationships. Adolescence is the developmental period during which romantic relationships typically first emerge. Initially, same-sex peer groups that were common during childhood expand into mixed-sex peer groups that are more characteristic of adolescence. Romantic relationships often form in the context of these mixed-sex peer groups. Furthermore, romantic relationships are centrally connected to adolescents' emerging sexuality. Parents, policymakers, and researchers have devoted a great deal of attention to adolescent sexuality. in large part because of concerns related to sexual intercourse, contraception, and preventing teens pregnancy. Behavioral and psychological adjustment. Identity formation. Marcia has described identify formation during adolescence as involve both decision points and commitments with respect to ideology. Example is religion and politics, and occupations. He described four identity status: foreclosure, identity diffusion, moratorium, and identity achievement. Foreclosure occurs when an individual commits to an identity without exploring options. Identity diffusion occurs when adolescents neither explore nor commit to any identities. Moratorium is a state in which adolescents are actively exploring options but have not yet made commitments. And identity achievement occur when individuals have explored different options and then made identity commitments. Aggression and antisocial behavior. According to the theory, early starters are at greater risk for long-term antisocial behavior that extends into adulthood than are late starters. Late starters who become antisocial during adolescence are theorized to experience poor parental monitoring and supervision. Aspects of parenting that become more salient during adolescence. Poor monitoring and lack of supervision contribute to increased involvement with deviant peers, which in turn promote adolescents' own antisocial behavior. Anxiety and depression. Starting in early adolescence, compared with males, females have rates of anxiety that are about twice as high and rate of depression that are 1.5 to 3 times as high. Also, the rate vary across specific anxiety and depression diagnosis. Rates for some disorders are markedly higher in adolescence than in childhood or adulthood. Family diversity, such as abuse and parental psychopathology during childhood, sets the stage for social and behavioral problems during adolescence. Adolescents with such problems generate stress in their relationships, example by resolving conflict poorly and excessive seeking reassurance and select into more maladaptive social contexts. Academic achievement. Academic achievement is important in its own right as a marker of positive adjustment during adolescence, but also because academic behavior sets the stage for future educational and occupational opportunities. The most serious consequence of school failure, particularly dropping out of school, is the high risk of an unemployment or underemployment in adulthood that follows. High achievement can set the stage for college or future vocational training and opportunities. And the last one is diversity. Even within the same country, adolescents, genders, ethnicity, immigrants, status, religion, sexual orientation, socioeconomic status, and personality can shape both how adolescents behave and how others respond to them. Creating diverse developmental contexts for different adolescents, for example, early puberty that occurred before most other peers have experienced puberty appears to be associated with worse outcome for girls than boys. Likely in part because girls who enter puberty early tend to associate it with older boys, which in turn is associated with early sexual behavior and substance use. Finally, genetic variations contribute an additional source of diversity in adolescence. Current approaches emphasize gene X environment interactions, which often follow a different susceptibility models. That is, Particular genetic variation are considered riskier than others, but genetic variation also can make adolescents more or less susceptible to environmental factors. Thank you for your attention.